How I wish to take Shuan in as my son-in-law. But he disdains my worldly wealth, claiming he will only marry a woman of pure character. I turned and asked the matchmaker to find someone who could marry into my family. The matchmaker brought Shuan An's sworn rival, a classmate, Chen Yinyu, orphaned, young and dirt poor, yet truly beautiful. My lifelong wish is to find a good family and marry into it stably. I asked him to tell the truth. I am greedy and want to live off a woman's wealth. The matchmaker gasped, but I smiled. Greedy is good. As long as the money is enough, he will be the most obedient husband. Better than those hypocrites who want both profit and fame, and expect you to be grateful and admire them. I beckoned to him. Chen Yinyu responded and walked closer. He raised his hand and lifted the beaded curtain between us. Amidst the tinkling sound, I saw his face clearly for the first time in the bright light. My breath hitched for a moment. Truly beautiful, just like the ink orchid painting hanging in my study. So pure that it paradoxically exuded a breathtaking allure. His eyebrows and eyes were beautiful, suppressed by his plain clothes. Restrained yet potent. Name your price. He pondered for a moment, and looked up. His clear eyes fell on my face. A touch 20 taels. A kiss 50 taels. Sharing a bed 100 taels. Are you serious? Miss Jin, I dare to quote this price. Precisely because I am worth this price. I didn't reply. It wasn't that I thought he was asking for too much, but that I thought he was asking for too little. Given Chen Yinyu's appearance, if he were displayed at Chengfeng Pavilion, 500 taels a night and people would still fight over him. This is great, to meet someone who doesn't understand the market. I looked at him, my lips slowly curling up. 800 taels and you join my Jin family. This is the price for your servitude. I am buying you out. Chen Yinyu's eyelashes fluttered, waiting for more. The price for other services will be calculated separately. I Jin Yu never mistreat my own people. The matchmaker held her breath beside us. I have only one request. Be my quiet tool and nothing more. Don't cause me trouble. Chen Yinyu fell silent for a moment. Then a faint smile curved his lips. Miss Jin is straightforward. He extended his hand to me, palm up. His fingers were long and slender with distinct joints. Then shall we start with a deposit? I had a servant bring the banknotes. The matchmaker, having received her reward, happily withdrew. I pushed the banknotes back in front of Chen Yinyu. He slightly hesitated. As he looked up, a flicker of light seemed to pass through his eyes. A deposit of 400 taels and another 400 upon completion. Aren't you afraid he'll take the money and disappear? I picked up my teacup, blew away the foam and smiled slightly. How could that be? I trust your character, sir. 400 taels, what is that? If he ran off with this little money, I wouldn't even bother to chase him. I'd just consider it throwing money into the water to hear the splash. Chen Yinyu looked at me, his gaze shifting slightly. Then he carefully put away the banknotes. His fingertips gently brushed the edge of the banknotes. In his eyes, there was a sense of solid joy, like finding a long-term meal ticket. Throat. I sighed softly in my heart. This child has truly never seen real mountains of gold and silver. Chen Yin actually had some professional ethics. That afternoon, he came to the door with a slightly worn-out trunk, saying that since the deposit had been accepted, he should move into the mansion. To put my mind at ease, I had someone tidy up a side room for him and didn't pay much attention. The business affairs were complicated and I was busy until late at night. Just as I was about to rest, there was a soft knock on the door. I opened the door and Chen Yinyu was standing outside. He was enveloped in a damp mist. His dark hair was half wet and he was only loosely wearing an outer robe. The collar was slightly. The candlelight cast a soft edge on his features, like a demon that devours souls. His voice was even more gentle than during the day, tinged with the coolness of the night air. The money has been collected, so the employer must inspect the goods. What if I am not satisfied? I do not accept deposit refunds. Therefore I will definitely satisfy Miss. I am tired after a day's work and really don't have the inclination. But since a beauty is offering herself, I don't want to refuse. Besides, it's not necessarily about doing that. I stepped aside to let him in and walked directly to the desk. The faint scent from him brushed past my nose. It was the clear scent of orchids. I asked him to move a small stool and sit directly opposite the desk. This distance would prevent him from seeing the details of the accounts. But it was just right for me to look up and see his face. The candlelight was warm yellow, spilling over his jade-like skin. His pupils were clear in the light, like ink jade immersed in clear water. He sat quietly, his back straight, like a meticulously carved jade statue. Looking at a beauty under the lamp indeed has a different charm. I read a few lines of accounts and then looked at him for a moment. It was pleasing to the eye and relieved fatigue. A quarter of an hour later I closed the ledger. Chen Yinyu got up at the right time and poured me more tea. The tea was slightly hot with white mist rising. I took it and casually placed it on the desk. Before he could withdraw his hand, I reached out and took his hand. Chen Yinyu's fingertips paused slightly and did not pull away. I lowered my eyes and slowly stroked his hand a couple of times. Excellent quality, distinct knuckles, long and strong. Just a bit rough with calluses on the knuckles. The palm wasn't very delicate either. It doesn't matter. With a little more effort in the future it will be fine. I touched it for a while longer before letting go. I got up and rummaged through the multi-treasure shelf nearby. I found a plain drawstring pouch which held exactly 20 taels. I threw it to him. Go back and spend it. Chen Yinyu took it and squeezed the pouch with his fingertips. The corners of his lips curved upwards. Yes, Miss should also rest early. He withdrew and the sound of him closing the door was light and steady. I listened to his footsteps fade away. I thought starting tomorrow I need to have some cash on hand. I can't always find a pouch at the last minute. The next day I led Chen Yinyu to see my father. In the study, my father was sighing over a calligraphy and painting. He was probably still heartbroken about his runaway son-in-law. Father, this is the son-in-law I've taken in. Junior Chen Yin Yu. Greetings Master Jin. His voice was clear and his demeanor was neither humble nor arrogant. My father didn't respond, just sighed deeply. I knew what he meant. The more a person lacks something, the more they want to fill it. My father studied hard for years, taking the imperial examinations 7 times. He failed every time. Disheartened, he went to sea. He struggled and built this mountain of gold and silver. He had money, but the thorn in his heart remained. So he scattered money, generously sponsoring scholars. He wished someone could fulfill his dream of becoming an official for him. Shuan and his ancestors had some reputation. Now fallen on hard times, it suited him perfectly. He studied well and had a proper appearance. More importantly, it was the noble and refined aura that my father could not obtain. He gave money and houses, wishing he could treat the person like his own son. If he hadn't insisted on taking Shuan in as a son-in-law, I would have suspected that he was an illegitimate child left outside. Alas, now the noble demeanor of those who passed the imperial examinations looks down on us. He ran away. I didn't care what I thought. I introduced them and it was considered an open relationship. The marriage was handled by subordinates, so I didn't have to worry. Chen Yin was sensible and didn't come to disturb me. Instead, he often went to my sister's courtyard. At first my sister ignored him, closing her doors and refusing to see him. Later she actually allowed him in. Later still, I passed by the study. I heard my sister's long-lost laughter coming from inside. I paused for a moment. When I pushed the door open, my sister was pointing at the painting "Solitary Fishing on a Cold River" on the wall. She was talking animatedly. Chen Yin stood beside her, leaning slightly forward, listening attentively. Seeing me enter, he looked up. His eyes were clear and bright and he curved his lips into a smile for me. Old Master Jin's insights are unique. This junior has benefited greatly. He turned to my sister, his tone sincere. My sister stroked her beard, her face beaming. I gave Chen Yin a warning glance. You two continue talking. I chose my words and turned to leave. My sister's smiling voice came from behind. Yin Yu, come and look at this. Yin Yu, come and look at this. The 8th day of the 4th lunar month, auspicious for weddings. The Jin family's business was large and guests were as numerous as clouds. Those who knew them and those who didn't all came to join the fun. Chen Yin's side was desolate. There were only a few fellow students and 2 or 3 elders. Barely enough to fill 2 tables. After the ceremony, I led him to toast and acknowledge relatives at each table. Chen Yin usually wore plain blue and white. He always suppressed the beauty in his eyes. But today was different. He wore a fiery red robe and a jade crown. That touch of allure was no longer hidden. His lips were stained crimson by the wine. The corners of his eyes were slightly raised. He exuded a charming and elegant demeanor that was never present before. He followed me quietly, half a step behind. I guided him in greeting people. He would then greet them softly and raise his cup. His responses were calm and his words were appropriate. In the end, there were no mistakes. His demeanor could even be described as pleasing to the eye. Several elders initially had a scrutinizing look. After a few drinks, they were all charmed by him, their expressions relaxed. He truly brought me honor. We reached the table by the east corridor. That table was for the scholars sponsored by my father. For reasons of sentiment and propriety, we had to go there. Everyone at the table stood up to offer congratulations, talking and laughing merrily. Only Shuanan remained seated unmoving. He held his wine cup, his knuckles turning white. His face was so grim it could drip water. Thank you all for gracing us with your presence. A humble drink to express my gratitude. Everyone responded and drank it down. Shuanan still didn't move. His gaze fell on Chen Yin as if it were laced with ice. Chen Yin seemed oblivious, lightly adjusting his sleeve. He poured a full cup for me. His movements were fluid, his eyes lowered. As docile as a painting. Brother Shuan, want you have a drink? Shuanan curled his lips into a cold sneer. Brother Chen, you have quite the skills. You eat the soft rice with such peace of mind. The whole table fell silent. I rubbed the rim of my cup with my fingertips, my smile undiminished. Chen Yinyu also chuckled softly. He turned his head, his breath brushing past my ear. Wife, is he here to cause trouble? Just a dog barking. He reached out and tidied my hair by my temples, which wasn't messy at all. His fingertips were cool and brushed past my ear. I used to think Brother Goa was a man of integrity and honor. Now I see, he's just a pathetic worm jealous of others' happiness. Shuanan stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor, making a piercing screech. He glared at us intently, his chest heaving. That look was as if he wished he could devour Chen Yinyu alive. I took a step forward, just enough to shield Chen Yinyu half a body length behind me. No need to speak, just looked at Shuanan calmly. He met my gaze for a moment, the color draining from his face bit by bit. Finally he threw down his wine cup fiercely and left in a huff. The sound of the porcelain cup shattering was particularly jarring in the silence. Chen Yinyu gently squeezed my hand from behind. His fingertips were cool yet carried a comforting strength. I clasped his hand back, holding it tight. Everyone please continue. The music started again and the banquet returned to its lively state. There were still some business social obligations. I told him to go back to the room first. Don't take off the wedding attire. He looked up, the lamplight in the corridor reflected in his eyes, flashing slightly. He nodded, asking nothing. After the social obligations, it was half an hour later. I pushed open the door, the candlelight warm and soft. He was indeed sitting obediently by the bed. His hair was wet and the steam had dampened a small part of his red robe. It seemed he had washed himself and deliberately put the wedding attire back on. Very obedient. The Hefei wine was on the table. Seeing me enter, he stood up, picked up the pot and poured 2 cups. As he handed them over, his fingertips were damp with water, cool. Wife, Hefei wine. I took it, our arms intertwined, and drank it in one gulp. The wine was slightly spicy, sliding down my throat. He put down his cup and looked up. The candlelight flickered in his eyes, dimming and brightening. Wife, what kind do you like? Gradual, like a slow-flowing stream. I raised my hand, my fingertips brushing past his slightly damp hair. I hooked a strand of semi-dry hair and twirled it. Chen Yinyu's eyelashes fluttered slightly, letting me do as I pleased. I leaned close to his ear, my breath brushing past his ear. I like someone who knows how to serve. I lay back on the wedding bed covered in red brocade. My breathing uneven. Chen Yinyu knelt at the foot of the bed, his dark hair slightly messy. A few strands clinging to his neck damp. He lowered his eyes, his expression unreadable. Only his long lashes casting a faint shadow beneath his eyes. I released the hand that had unconsciously gripped his hair, and slowly tidied his slightly messy hair, thinking, I must give Madame Wang a generous red envelope later. Where did she find such a wonderful person? It's so worth it. After a moment I lifted my foot, and gently kicked his shoulder. That's enough. His body paused slightly and he looked up at me. His eyes were filled with a watery haze. That hint of clarity was scattered and broken, leaving only a surging tide. Like ink orchids drenched by rain, their petals crushed. Chen Yinyu didn't speak but rose as instructed. Undress. I sent another bag of silver to Granny Wang. In addition, I prepaid Chen Yinyu 1,500 taels. He held the stack of new silver notes, his eyes deep as he looked up. My lady is pre-ordering? Do a good job. I lazily hummed. My fingertip tapped the table. In the following days I was quite dazed. Comfortable in body and mind. Chen Yinyu, his professional ability is truly outstanding. After receiving the money he did his best to serve me perfectly and thoughtfully. One day while reconciling accounts at the merchant firm, a servant rushed in to report. Master, young Master Shuan is here to see you. My hand holding the brush paused. I was stunned for a while. Then I matched this young Master Shuan with Shuan in. Don't see him. I lowered my head and continued to check my numbers. Outside an argument arose. The door was pushed open and Shuan barged in. His face was solemn. The servant apologized in fear. I waved my hand telling him to leave. Shuan is sick, he likes to pretend to be a saint. Before he lived in the 3-courtyard house I gave him, wearing cloud silk worth over 1,000 taels a bolt from my Jin family's weaving workshop. He acted so aloof, saying he disliked fame and fortune and did not covet wealth. Now he looks heartbroken, saying he couldn't bear to see me go astray. My hand holding the brush stopped in mid-air. The ink drop almost stained the ledger. I looked up at him like looking at a rare artifact. You know very well what kind of person Chen Yinyu is. Greedy for money, profit-seeking and without integrity. You are taking him as a son-in-law, aren't you? Willingly. Willingly what? His Adam's apple bobbed, but he couldn't say those 4 words. He just sighed heavily. Even if you resent me for refusing the marriage, you shouldn't debase yourself like this. Young Master Shuan, what makes you think that I Jin Yu am taking a son-in-law to spite you? He was stunned. What makes you think that you look down on me, and that even if I sink to the dust, picking up anyone as debasing myself? The wind blew in from the window, rustling the ledger pages. Shuan, and you think too highly of yourself. His face turned from pale to green, his lips moved, but no sound came out. I chose Chen Yinyu for a simple reason. I walked around the desk and stood in front of him. He was tall, but I stood on the steps. He was below the steps and he had to look up to meet my gaze. He is much better than hypocrites like you who want both profit and fame, and expect gratitude. He is much better. Shuan An's face turned completely green and white. His knuckles turned white from clenching, but he couldn't utter a complete rebuttal. He finally flicked his sleeve and said, Jin Yu, you will regret this sooner or later. He turned and left. I watched him coldly disappear behind the screen wall. Steward, I called out loudly. The steward hurried in, still sweating on his forehead. Replace all the servants who didn't stop the young lady just now. Also the house where the Shuan family lives, take it back. The steward looked troubled and hesitated to speak. I glanced at him. If you think it's inappropriate, go and tell me more. Anyway, I am in charge now. The steward lowered his head even lower. Yes, master. He quickly retreated. I stood in place. The sun was shining brightly outside the window. Golden light spills. Still annoying. Not because of Shuan An's words, but because he disrupted it like this. Ruined the good mood I had just now from thinking of Chen Yinyu. I might as well go back home. When I got home, Chen Yinyu was practicing the zither in the courtyard. He told me a few days ago that he wanted to sign up for a class, using his own private money to learn to play instruments. I thought learning a talent would be convenient to please me, so I hired the best teacher for him. At this moment I lay down on the chaise lounge in the courtyard. With a wave of my hand a servant brought a small table with snacks, and then retreated silently. He asked me what I wanted to listen to and I told him to play whatever he wanted. The zither music flowed from his fingertips, although I didn't quite understand what it meant. But the spring scenery, the beautiful person and the gentle breeze brushing his slightly raised sleeves were indeed a pleasure to behold. I closed my eyes and listened to the zither music. The mood that had been disturbed by Shuanin at the trading company gradually calmed down. When the song ended he got up and walked over. Is my lady in a bad mood? Want to hold hands? Today's special 15 taels. I couldn't help but smile and opened my eyes. The sky and I were reflected in his eyes. My gaze swept across his face and landed on those pale lips. I reached out as if possessed and gently touched his lips with my fingertips. What about a kiss then? That's not a special offer. His lips parted under my fingertips. His warm breath brushed against them. It didn't feel like I was touching his lips, but rather like he was kissing my fingertips. I was stunned for a moment, withdrew my hand and teased. Young Master Chen's business acumen is getting sharper and sharper. But who told my lady to be unhappy today? Before he finished speaking he leaned over and placed a light quick kiss on my lips. Like a dragonfly touching water, a brief touch and separation. Before I could react he had already pulled back. with a smug smile in his eyes. When I reacted, my hand grabbed his collar before my mind could. Chen Yinyu was pulled down by me again. Our noses almost touched, our breaths intertwined. That one just now was because you were in a bad mood. A complimentary gift. I'll pay extra. In the end, Chen Yinyu's lips were swollen from my biting. His lips were already pale and now they were red and swollen, like they had been rubbed with rouge. The rouge on my dressing table should suit him well. I'll try it another day. As I thought this, my mood inexplicably improved. So much so that when Madame Shuan came to visit, I could still smile and listen, as she wailed and cried in my flower hall, saying how difficult it was for them, a widow and her child, accusing my Jin family of bullying them with their power, and that taking back the house would force them to death. I slowly stirred the tea lid, waiting for her to finish her rant. Then looked up. Are you done? She was stunned. My family's house, I took it back. Is there a problem? She seemed to have her throat choked, her face turning red, and started a new round of complaints about hardship and heartlessness. Just as she was making a scene, Iduo hurried over. Seeing the situation, his brows furrowed into a knot. Madame Shuan saw him as a savior, and rushed over to grab his sleeve. Iduo looked troubled and looked at me, with disapproval in his eyes, and a habitual desire to smooth things over. Why make things so awkward? Why make things so awkward? The marriage proposal failed. There was no need to see them out. The steward didn't hesitate this time, and with 2 capable maids, half escorted, half supported, he saw Madame Shuan, who was still lingering out. The reception hall was finally quiet. I looked at him, sighing heavily. Must you be like this? You've completely offended them now. I don't like him. Got a problem? I chuckled, my lips moving slightly, but ultimately said nothing. He just rubbed the jade thumb ring on his finger, looking at me with complex eyes. I knew what he was thinking. I am an only daughter. It's not because he loved my late mother so much that he was unwilling to remarry. It's because he couldn't have children. The doctor said his vital energy was weak and he had difficulty conceiving. He prayed to gods and Buddhas and took medicine for over 10 years. Only to luckily have me. And I am not even a boy. But having someone is better than having no one. So he raised me like a son, keeping me by his side, personally teaching me to use the abacus, read ledgers, do business and understand people. His greatest wish in life was for me to manage this family business well, and then find him a son-in-law who could bring him prestige. His efforts in raising me can be considered the foundation for me to smoothly take over the family business. I appreciate it, but deep down he favors men. Shuanin is a man and a scholar at that. In him I saw my younger self, what I couldn't have. His support for Shuanin stemmed from a subtle sense of superiority and a compensatory psychology, as well as an unconscious favoritism towards fellow men. He felt Shuanin was one of his own, one of the men, even though Shuanin and his family looked down on us merchants openly or secretly. I didn't mind, because that was the noble pride of a talented scholar, understandable, forgivable and could be influenced. He even felt, I shouldn't care about these trivial matters. After all, men always need to save face. They are scholars, they are men. I stood there, my lips parting, wanting to say more. Those words, I didn't need to hear them to guess. We had argued about this before. The worst time was 2 months ago. Seeing that I was slow to agree, he secretly went to the Shuan family to propose marriage behind my back, intending to take Shuanin as my husband. And the result? That pure scholar looked down on my merchant background, and I also received a round of subtle criticism. The news spread, causing gossip, which affected business. At that time he looked at me with the same expression as now. A mix of disappointment and resentment, as if I had disappointed him, the imagined male heir who could inherit his scholarly aspirations. Back then I still spoke kindly, asking him to think carefully whether he wanted to make things awkward between us over a man. But now I only feel weary. I can't even be bothered to put on a pretense anymore. If you have the ability, go to the Go family, and let your good son support you in your old age. I said this and turned to leave. Behind me I heard his exasperated gasps. As for his ridiculous male pride, who cares? In the following days it was calm and peaceful. I must have been amused by my own words. They didn't come to bother me about the Shuan family's affairs again. The business of the trading company was complicated and I was so busy I couldn't stand still. Chen Yinyu still behaved himself and kept to his duties. Occasionally he would play the zither while I sang, or when I was looking at the ledger and rubbing my forehead, he would offer a cup of tea at just the right temperature. He no longer mentioned those openly priced intimacies. On the contrary, sometimes when I was extremely tired, I would beckon him over. He would then come over and sit quietly beside me, letting me lean on him, or I would just stare blankly at his face. The money was still paid, but he was no longer in a hurry to settle the accounts as he was at first. He would only accept it calmly when I gave it to him. His eyes showed a look of composure. One afternoon I woke up from a nap. I saw him sitting by the window reading. Sunlight streamed through the window, casting dappled shadows on his profile. His long lashes drooped as serene as a painting. I suddenly remembered what Shuanin had said that day. Greedy for money and profit with no integrity. I got up and walked over. My shadow fell on the pages of the book in his hand. He looked up, his eyes questioning. I reached out and took the book from his hand, and casually tossed it aside. Chen Yinyu. I leaned down, resting my hands on the armrests of his chair, trapping him in a small space. Don't you want anything? Aren't you giving it to me, my lady? Besides money, is there anything else you want? Besides money, he repeated, looking up at me. The usual flattery or gentleness in his eyes faded, revealing a clear, serious light beneath. That is, I hope my lady will always be like this. Mountains of gold and silver, as stable as a mountain. This was a clever remark, but it was inexplicably comforting. I lowered my head and kissed his slightly cool lips. Sweet talker, just the truth, he responded to my kiss. his voice muffled between our lips. A few more days passed and the steward came to report. The Shuan family had moved out of that residence. I heard they rented a small courtyard in the west of the city. And were quite hard up. I just nodded when I heard this. He hesitated for a moment then said, "My lord sent some money over." My hand holding the brush paused. An ink blot formed a small circle on the ledger. I know. Turning around I used the excuse of poor business at the dinner table to reduce my monthly salary by 60%. I holding my bowl was stunned. I forgot to put the braised pork on my chopsticks into my mouth. Poor business? His tone rose full of suspicion. Yes, the businesses on several waterways have been affected. And cash flow is a bit tight. I opened my mouth again and looked at myself. Then glanced at Chen Yinyu who was eating quietly. Finally I swallowed my words and just sighed heavily. Whether he believed it or not I didn't care. This was a warning, but someone really believed it. At first Chen Yinyu wasn't home much. When I returned to the mansion in the afternoon he was often not there. When asked the servants said the son-in-law had gone out to meet friends. I didn't suspect anything. After all he was going to the tea house under my name. The shopkeeper would submit a list every day. What tea was ordered, what snacks were consumed, who he met written clearly. He went for 2 or 3 days in a row returning only in the evening. That evening after I bathed I was drying my hair in front of the mirror. He came out of the bathing room his hair still wet. Then he went to get his precious wooden box. Sitting by the bed he carefully counted the money. That wooden box was where he kept his private savings. It mainly contained his banknotes and loose silver. Sometimes if I had extra cash on me, I would casually put it in there for him. In the candlelight he lowered his eyes, his fingertips slowly sifting through the banknotes. He then counted the scattered silver coins below. His expression was as focused as if he were studying a sacred text. After counting for a long time he looked up. His dark hair made his neck appear even fairer. Including what my wife gives me daily minus expenses. There's still about 2,000 taels left. I responded with a sound waiting for him to continue. I was already used to him occasionally calculating his savings. Part of it I had entrusted someone to send back to the clan. To support the elders in their old age. He explained. I nodded. I know this. His parents had died early. In the clan only that distant elder had shown him some kindness. Sending some money back each month was something I had agreed to. Just as I was thinking, he suddenly thrust the entire wooden box into my hands. The box was heavy. I was stunned and looked up at him. The business funds are temporarily tight. Although I don't have much here, it can help in an emergency. He paused, his voice softening slightly. If it's still not enough I can also borrow some from a few classmates with decent family backgrounds. I looked at him without speaking. Seeing my silence as if afraid I wouldn't believe him, he quickly added, his eyes showing a desperate sincerity. From now on my expenses can be further reduced. We don't need to eat or dress so well. And that music lesson it's okay if I don't take it. That can save a sum. Seeing him looking like he wanted to economize and live a hard life with me immediately. I was busy for a moment but ultimately couldn't help myself. I turned my head and chuckled softly. What kind of businessman is this? Not only did he take out his savings, but he's even thinking of borrowing money to subsidize me? I casually made up an excuse saying that the payment for goods had arrived recently. And the family didn't lack his contribution. Chen Yinyu listened without refuting, only giving a soft He still pushed the banknotes back into my hand, saying since it's yours you should still keep it. In the following days he was clearly a bit off. That professional enthusiasm for diligent study and self-improvement seemed to have been extinguished. He no longer proactively brought up those explicitly priced intimacies. After the tenderness of the night I was about to take the banknotes as usual. But he gently held my hand. Let's skip it today. His voice was a little hoarse, his face turned away. In the candlelight, his long lashes cast a shadow beneath his eyes. Would you want to raise the price? Why is that? I rarely had such patience to get to the bottom of things. My fingertip tapped his slightly damp palm. Don't worry, we really don't lack money at home. No, it's not that. It's something else. What is it then? He fell silent, turned over and faced away from me. The outline of his shoulder blades was clearly visible beneath his thin sleeping robe. Wife, just consider me. Sometimes I also want to do something that doesn't involve money. This statement sounded novel. If not for money, then what for? If not for money, then for the heart. His unusual behavior, could it be he's truly fallen for me? This thought arose and I myself was startled. Then I felt it was absurd. Between him and me we had a clear transaction. Clear and clean, the most so. If other things were mixed in it would be less beautiful. But seeing him now with his back to me, his shoulders tense. He exuded a touch of pitiful stubbornness. I reached out. My fingertips lightly landed on the slightly open collar of his sleeping clothes at the back of his neck, touching his warm skin. Chen Yinyu turned around. He was silent for a moment, then slowly turned around as instructed. In the candlelight his eyes were wet, his lips rosy. The marks from my earlier biting had not yet completely faded. Not for money. My fingertips slid along his neck to his jaw, lifted his face, forcing him to meet my gaze. Then tell me, what do you want? His eyes flickered as if 1,000 emotions were surging. But in the end he just lowered his eyes, gently took my hand that was causing trouble, and placed it by his cheek. Wanting my wife to be happy. As long as my wife is happy, anything is fine. Wanting me to be happy? When he said this he had changed his approach. Thought I would fall for this? Or did that heart, which should have only sought money, swerve off course? I didn't ask anymore. I rolled over and lay down, pulled the brocade quilt over me and closed my eyes. It became quiet behind me. Only the sound of our shallow breaths remained. After a while, a soft rustling sound beside me. He cautiously leaned closer. His movements were very light with a hint of testing. Then a slightly cool fingertip gently hooked my little finger. Just holding it, a tiny insignificant force, like a newborn cub timidly extending its claws to touch its chosen owner. I kept my eyes closed, didn't move. Chen Yinyu likes me. This thought was like a fine thorn pricking my heart. It didn't hurt, but it made me uncomfortable. Business is business, a clear transaction. Clean and neat, involving feelings, is like fine silk stained with oil. It's an eyesore no matter how you look at it, and even more troublesome to deal with. With feelings come concerns, expectations and weaknesses. If he becomes overly doting and demanding in the future, will I give or not? If he becomes jealous because of love and interferes with my decisions, will I tolerate it or not? The thought of these potential entanglements and tugs of war gave me a headache. I should have realized long ago that living together day and night like this, skin to skin, even a cat or dog would develop some affection, let alone a living person. I thought for 7 days. Drafted 7 or 8 versions of my speech. The central idea was clear: if you want money, you're welcome. If you want my heart, I refuse. If he doesn't change his ways after knowing his mistake, this deal is over. That evening I returned home with a full speech prepared. Chen Yinyu was sitting by the window reading by candlelight. Hearing footsteps, he looked up. His gaze in the dim yellow light fell on me. My wife is back. He put down his book and came to greet me. Those prepared cold and hard words suddenly got stuck in my throat. I looked at his lowered eyebrows and eyes, the patch of fair skin on the back of his neck. After I finished speaking, I sat down opposite myself. He sat down as instructed, his gaze quietly falling on my face. With a subtle hint of inquiry. Chen Yinyu, let's talk. Please speak, my lady. You've been a bit off lately. His eyelashes trembled slightly and he didn't reply. We agreed back then, money for goods. The cleanest. You want money, I want satisfaction, isn't that good? He was silent, just watching quietly. I felt a little uncomfortable being looked at by him. My voice softened, almost earnestly. It's better to seek money than to seek affection. People's hearts change. I like it today. Tomorrow I might be tired of it. But money won't. It's real. If you're tight, it's yours. The sea of suffering is boundless. Turn back and you'll reach the shore. Don't go down the wrong path. I spoke from the heart, considering myself to have done my best. Chen Yinyu suddenly chuckled softly. My lady has finished speaking. My lady is right. Seeking affection is indeed less stable than seeking money. I unconsciously fiddled with the cuff of my sleeve, waiting for him to continue. But if I truly fall in love with my lady for my lady, isn't there any benefit? In the future I will serve my lady with even more dedication and effort. My heart skipped a beat. Don't want money? Not wanting money is the most frightening. Chen Yinyu seemed to read my mind and the corners of his lips curved. I've seen too many men and women. The word love is the most tormenting. Aren't I a living example? Knowing I should NT but still jumping in. He reached out. His fingertips gently touched the back of my hand resting on the table. If I seek affection, it's like drawing a circle on the ground to imprison myself. Willingly I hand the rope to my lady. What is my lady afraid of? I may not be thinking of you. It's not my lady, it's I myself draw a circle on the ground to imprison myself. If one day my lady finds me an eyesore or gets tired of me, just say the word. I will leave on my own. I will never pester you or cause my lady any trouble. After Chen Yinyu finished speaking, he lowered his eyes slightly. Then he raised them again, his gaze earnest and frank. My lady need not worry. Whether it's a sea of suffering or a mountain of gold ahead, it's all my own choice, Chen Yinyu. None of this has anything to do with my lady. Chen Yinyu's words kept replaying in my mind. It sounded like there was some truth to it. Drawing a circle on the ground to imprison myself. Willingly. Handing the rope to me. It sounds like I am getting all the benefits. But are these benefits easy to get? I lay flat on my back, listening to the even breathing of the person beside me. He seemed to be fast asleep. He says nice things now. If in the future due to this affection he develops delusions and greedily seeks more, wouldn't that be troublesome? I suddenly sat up. Reaching out, I forcefully pushed the person next to me. Chen Yinyu. He grunted and groggily opened his eyes. His eyes were still heavy with sleep. He looked at me with a misty gaze. Will you cause me trouble? My liking for my lady is my own business. I am just laying it out. I will continue to serve my lady as I always have. The rules I should follow, I will not miss any. Not a teenage kid. Can't live without romance. Understands what they should, not foolish. Won't cause trouble for my wife either. His tone was calm with the laziness of just waking up, but inexplicably had a convincing certainty. I looked at him. In the moonlight his eyes were clear without any evasion. The uneasy fluctuating calculations in my heart suddenly settled. That's more like it. Sleep. I lay down again, pulled the quilt and patted him. Since that day of confessing my feelings, Chen Yin has been extremely clingy. I was handling affairs. He would move a small stool and sit opposite me. Without a sound, just quietly shelling pine nuts. Once a small plate was full, he would push it to my hand. Looking at you eagerly like a cat waiting for praise. I got up to get something and he also got up. Like a shadow he followed half a step behind me. I stopped abruptly and turned around. He bumped into my arms precisely. He then put his arm around my waist, resting his chin in the crook of my neck. Rubbing gently twice. His breath was full of the clear scent of orchids. Chen Yin Yu, do you have nothing to do? Serving my wife is the most important task. Go go go. Go have tea and listen to music with your classmates and friends. Don't disturb my peace here. He blinked, seeming a little reluctant. But seeing my firm attitude, he could only slowly agree. He left, looking back 3 times. My ears finally became quiet. About an hour later, familiar footsteps could be heard outside the window. Very brisk. He lifted the curtain and Chen Yin Yu walked in. His eyes were full of irrepressible gossip. He leaned close to me. His eyes were astonishingly bright. Wife, guess what fresh news I heard at the tea house just now? His voice was full of laughter and he didn't wait for me to guess. He eagerly leaned over, almost to my ear, pouring in that warmth and gossip together. He said the appointments for this year's Jinshi have been made. Shuin in rank 3rd and needs to be appointed to an external post. He has always been arrogant and looked down on the world, believing his talent was enough to get a good position, but he never made any connections in the officialdom, and disdained to do so. When the final appointments were made, he was actually assigned to be the magistrate of a remote desolate place. The mountains were high and the roads were long and miasma filled the air. I heard that the previous magistrate there died of illness. He had borrowed money from some classmates with decent families. He had originally said he would return it in half a month, but it was delayed again and again. When his classmates heard that he had been appointed, they came to collect the debt. Not only did he not repay, but he put on that arrogant face, accusing them of only caring about money, losing the integrity of a scholar. He angered one of his hot-tempered classmates to the point of fighting on the spot. The room was in chaos, extremely unsightly. As I listened, the corners of my lips curled up. He brought up those old matters, and told them vividly, saying that when his classmates had a banquet at the academy they invited him. He always put on airs saying he disdained such social interactions. Then he wrote sour poems, secretly mocking others for fawning, flattering and currying favor. When others were no longer willing to be nice to him, and truly distanced themselves from him, he went to find his teachers and elders, with a wronged expression saying that because of his noble character, was ostracized by everyone. He had a set of his own when he was young. Shuin and always said back then a woman without talent is virtuous. She should be a good wife and mother, washing dishes and cooking. But then he saw those ladies who were truly managing household affairs. He would then raise his eyebrows. I imitated his aloof and disdainful tone, pursing my lips, trapped in the trivialities of the kitchen all day, lacking talent and virtue. Her words are tasteless, truly not a good match. Chen Ya was stunned at first, then lay on my lap. His shoulders shook and he let out a muffled laugh. This man was originally an ancestor who wanted everything. He wanted women to be well behaved. He also wanted women to be talented and outstanding. He also wanted them to suit his taste and flatter his aloofness. It all depended on his words. I reached out my fingertips, tracing a strand of his falling black hair. The twilight outside the window gradually closed in and lanterns under the eaves lit up one by one. We then snuggled in the warm light, feeling completely comfortable. Chen Yinyu was so clingy, though he didn't cause trouble, but he was always around, which really affected efficiency. I was thinking of finding something for him to do. He couldn't possibly revolve around me his whole life. There were servants like clouds at home, so trivial matters wouldn't fall to him. It was even more impossible for him to get involved in business matters. We both knew this tacitly, seeing him staring blankly at a book under the window again that day. I tapped the table. Chen Yin Ya, I called him. Do you want to go back to the academy? Their academy had a special system. The spring examination was not mandatory. If students felt they hadn't reached the required level, they could stay at the academy to continue their studies, or leave and seek their own future. Chen Yinyu felt that his knowledge was still shallow. He did not register for the exam. He chose to graduate. Who would have thought that as soon as he took off his student's blue robe, he was led to me by a matchmaker. He became the son-in-law of the Jin family. Why go back to the academy? Naturally, it was to prepare for next year's spring examination. Upon hearing this, his expression instantly froze. You've studied hard for over a decade. Don't you want to achieve fame? Bring glory to your ancestors? Even as a son-in-law, having an official position makes a world of difference. Chen Yinyu was silent for a moment, looking at me with a complex expression. My dear wife, I think passing the imperial examination might not be as stable and practical as living off your earnings. I looked at the serious expression on his beautiful face, and was speechless for a moment. Since you're eating the Jin family's food, naturally you should guard the Jin family's gate. Serving my wife is my duty. How can I be half-hearted? Thinking of running away? The family is rich. If you can't pass, I'll support you. His eyelashes fluttered, but he didn't respond. If you pass, I'll say my husband is an official. How glorious would that be? The moment the words fell, Chen Yinyu suddenly looked up. Looking at me, the light in his eyes flickered. I contacted the academy and used some money to get him back in. And so life changed. In the morning we rode in the same carriage. He wore a blue robe and I wore a brocade. We parted at the academy gate. I lifted the curtain and watched him enter the vermilion gate. His back was straight, not like he was going to study. More like going to a tough battle. In the evening the carriage stopped at the mountain gate on time. He came out in the twilight and got into the carriage. He often carried the scent of ink or a few scrolls of books. Spring turned to autumn, cold came and heat went, and a year passed in the blink of an eye. The night before the spring examination he tossed and turned. I was so bothered by him that I couldn't sleep, so I kicked him. Are you making flatbread? My dear, what if I don't pass the exam? If you don't pass, come back and keep eating my soft rice. He paused for a moment and said again. Then what if I pass but can't stay in the capital? But can't stay in the capital. What if I am assigned to a poor and remote place? I turned around to face him. In the darkness we couldn't see each other's expressions clearly. I could only feel his warm breath. I reached out and touched his tense back. I patted him gently. His body relaxed a little and he leaned closer. His forehead rested against the hollow of my shoulder. If we are really assigned elsewhere, then the two of us will probably have to experience the taste of sending letters by wild goose. Chen Yinyu's breath hitched and he held me tightly. No, wherever my wife is I am. He adhered to the idea that a couple cannot live apart. He scored a middle-ranking second class. Staying in the capital was considered stable. I was so happy I couldn't close my mouth. I paced back and forth in the hall. Good Yinyu, you've really brought honor to our family. He had sponsored quite a few students before, Now a few of them could speak to people in the central government. He pulled Chen Yinyu and asked where he wanted to go. The 6 ministries, the Hanlin Academy, or elsewhere. Our family can exert some influence. A job with little work, leisure, good pay, and close to home. I took back my hand that was holding Chen Yinyu's and put it behind my back. This our family can't exert that much influence. In the end it was only barely enough to satisfy the conditions of little work, leisure, and close to home. In the Hanlin Academy as a scribe organizing old documents. Close to home, a 15-minute walk. As for the salary, the first day he handed over his salary I asked him, "Why are you giving me the change?" "My dear, this is all of it." Finally, I very solemnly put away that little salary for him. It's not easy, truly not easy. That night as we lay down I habitually reached out to touch his waist. His slender waist tensed but didn't dodge. In the darkness he suddenly spoke. Touching hands 40 taels. Kissing 100 taels. Sleeping together 200 taels. My hand stopped and I raised an eyebrow. Since he confessed his feelings, these intimate matters had never involved money again. I arranged everything for his food, clothing, housing, and transportation. I gave him some cash each month. He also saved it all up. He sent it to his elders in the clan, rounding it up. Newly entered the Hanlin Academy. Colleagues had already invited me out 3 times in rotation. If I don't reciprocate it wouldn't be proper. The salary, my dear, has also seen it. My purse is truly empty. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. So I have to go back to my old profession to supplement the household income. My dear, please patronize my business? Before the words were even finished a kiss fell. In the midst of the passionate kiss I panted and pushed him away. Chen Yinyu, you are now an official of the imperial court. So now the price has gone up. Chen Yinyu's life seems to be always related to money. When he was a child he hid behind the door, listening to his parents argue about money. His mother's sobs, his father's sighs. The crisp sound of copper coins hitting the table. Later he knelt in front of his parents' morning hall, listening to the clan argue about his future. Which family would offer an extra bowl of rice, which family would take up one less room. Calculated clearly, bigger he ran around for himself, copying books for others, even running errands. Fingers stained with ink dust exchanged for a few warm copper coins. He was very clear about his own positioning. His lifelong ambition was to find a good family to marry into. Stable, worry-free. So when he learned that the eldest daughter of the Jin family was looking for a son-in-law, he went. But before that he and Jin Yu had actually met 3 times. The first time was shortly after he was admitted to the academy. The Jin family was the largest sponsor of the academy. The eldest daughter of the Jin family would occasionally come to inspect. That afternoon he had just finished his studies. Strolling alone under the corridor. Around the corner he happened to meet a group of people. Teachers in front accompanying a young lady in brocade. Her clothes were luxurious. Her eyes held the aloofness of being pampered. "Yin Yu, you've come at the right time. This is the eldest daughter of the Jin family, Jin Yu. Miss Jin, this is a newly promoted student in the academy, Chen Yin Ya." Student Chen Yin Ya, greetings to Miss Jin. His posture was proper, impeccable. "Young Master Chen." Her voice was steady without a ripple. That was all. The two passed each other. He smelled a faint fragrance, clear and noble. He stood in place listening to the footsteps fade away. The teacher was smiling and saying to her, "This child's talent is good. It's just that his family background is a bit poor." The rest of the words scattered with the wind. But not long after he received a notice from the academy. He received special funding from the Jin family with all tuition and fees waived. The second time was on a sudden rainy day. He was copying books for someone at the bookstore for a few copper coins. On the way back the sky suddenly changed and it poured rain. He held the cloth bag containing the books, walking quickly under the eaves of the street, trying to find a more secure place to shelter from the rain. As soon as he stopped he patted the water droplets on his clothes. He looked up. Through the heavy curtain of rain he met a pair of eyes. A young lady was coming out of the silk shop opposite, dressed in brocade and silk with a graceful figure surrounded by servants. The rain blurred her face. Only her eyes were clear and calm. With a casual glance, her gaze did not linger and she turned to be helped into that extremely spacious carriage. The Jin family's emblem was clearly carved on the eaves of the carriage. He withdrew his gaze and looked at the pouring rain in front of him. In just a moment a servant came quickly with an umbrella, handed him an oil paper umbrella. "My young ladies," the servant said and turned to leave, leaving no room for questions. He held the smooth umbrella handle. There seemed to be a faint familiar scent lingering on it. He looked up and the carriage had slowly driven away. The wheels rolled over the accumulated water and disappeared into the misty rain. He walked back to the academy with the umbrella. The umbrella was wide, protecting him completely, not getting wet at all. The third time was shortly after that fool Shuan and caused a city-wide uproar by refusing a marriage proposal. This batch of students from the academy graduated this year. As usual, several well-known merchants from the city were invited to observe the ceremony. The Jin family was naturally among them. The invitation was sent months ago. Chen Yin Yu sat in a front seat in the audience, watching Jin Yu walk onto the stage step by step. She stood firm on the stage. Her gaze swept steadily over the students in blue robes below, nodding slightly. "I was invited to attend today. Seeing that all of you are pillars of our country, deeply comforted. If the Jin family's business has a chance in the future, I wish to seek a future with all the talented young people." After the pleasantries she said no more. Let the head of the academy take over the conversation. Below the stage, Chen Yinyu's fingertips unconsciously fiddled with the edge of the book page. He looked at her calm expression, as if Shuanan's farce had never happened. That's right, what kind of scene has the eldest daughter of the Jin family not seen? How could she lose her composure because of a poor scholar's sour words? His gaze shifted slightly, falling on Go and on the other side of the front row. Shu An's back was straight, his chin slightly raised, still with that proud and aloof demeanor. But in this situation, it seemed particularly ridiculous. Chen Yinyu chuckled inwardly. In this world there are ultimately more normal people. Shu An's behavior in the eyes of those who can see. What's the difference from being sick? Not only does he rely on the Jin family's money to study and establish himself, but he also dislikes the Jin family's money for dirtying his integrity. Both and also, how can there be such a cheap thing in the world? He turned his gaze back to Jin Yu on the stage, wanting to latch onto a powerful figure. As soon as this thought flashed, he first confirmed it himself. Then he chuckled and shook his head. The Jin family has a high threshold and he has nothing. How can he reach it? He lowered his eyes, staring at the cuffs of his washed-out blue shirt. Unexpectedly, in less than 2 days, the news that the Jin family was looking for a son-in-law spread throughout the city like wings. Chen Yinyu was staring out the window at a half-withered orchid. Hearing Granny Wang's chatter, his heart skipped a beat. He slowly turned his head. The sunlight outside the window was just right, falling into his slightly widened pupils. Isn't this a coincidence? At first Chen Yinyu really just wanted money. When he set the price he thought was high, he was very clear in his mind. A family like the Jin family, looking for a son-in-law was just to have some peace and quiet for the time being. It wouldn't last long. He had to save more money while he was favored, and learn some skills to support himself, so as not to be kicked out later, and end up with nothing. Therefore his request to learn the zither was not entirely an excuse. With one more skill, even if he left the Jin family in the future, he could work as a teacher in a music hall, or teach the children of wealthy families. He could always make a living. He treated this as a business deal, calculated clearly. But Jin Yu is too different. He had seen her efficiency when checking accounts, a stroke of the vermilion pen determined the whereabouts of thousands of taels of silver. He had also seen her sternness when dealing with difficult merchants. In a few words, forcing the other party to break out in a cold sweat. But more often, he saw the Jin Yu that others couldn't see. Her eyes would curve when she talked about a big deal, like a cat that stole fish, feeding him a piece of crystal clear sugar cake. When she was exhausted, she would lie on the desk without any image. Her hair slightly messy, her eyes dizzy from looking at the accounts. When he saw it, she wasn't angry, just glared at him lazily. That look had no strength. Instead, it felt like a feather brushing against his heart. She was like a magnet, unconsciously attracting his gaze. At first it was admiration for the boss' boldness and generosity. Later, since then there were things about himself he hadn't even noticed. He would pay attention to which pastry she preferred, at what time she usually rested, what was bothering her when she frowned. These subtle observations had long since gone beyond the scope of professional ethics, until she said that her family's finances were tight. Chen Yinyu truly believed it. He hadn't seen how a mountain of gold and silver could collapse, but he had seen fallen families. At night anything could happen. For those few days he gathered with a few friends, and analyzed the situation with great seriousness. One said, I heard the canal transport has been unstable lately. Several shipments have been delayed. The Jin family does a large business, so the impact must be significant. Another said, a tall tree catches the wind. I am afraid someone is jealous and has secretly tripped them up. The more they talked, the more they felt that the Jin family might indeed be in trouble. If Chen Yinyu had been his old self, upon hearing that the employer might be going bankrupt, he would now be thinking about securing his own future. At least he would hold on to his money tightly. That was the foundation of his livelihood. But after a few thoughts, he finally settled on the fact that they had already married. Their status was set. The business deal was real, but the word couple was also real. He hadn't seen many loving couples. His parents argued about money all day, and there were many resentful couples in his clan. Couples are like birds in the same forest. He had read many stories about them flying apart when disaster struck. He didn't want to fly away. Not only did he not want to fly away, but he also wanted to take out all his own savings. Whatever little he could contribute he would. His friends wanted to ask him what he planned to do, but when they looked over, they saw his dazed expression and their hearts sank. It's over. This person has fallen. Friend Ding tentatively asked, Yinyu, you're not thinking of. We've already married. Chen Yinyu snapped back to reality, his tone unusually calm. Friend Yi almost choked. No, who said it was a transaction of goods and money back then? This live-in son-in-law status should NT be taken seriously. How can it not be taken seriously? Is the marriage certificate fake? Are heaven and earth fake? We are husband and wife. A legal and compliant couple. As soon as he said this, the room fell silent. Who among them didn't know Chen Yinyu's past reputation? He used to be a love strategist for his classmates, charging by the session. He could analyze others' romantic